Ever heard of Operation Obsolete Resolve? If you haven't, you're not alone. This story isn't one you'll find in most history books, but it's a fascinating look into a little-known chapter of military innovation and what could have been. Let's rewind to the late 1960s, a time of immense geopolitical tension and rapid technological advancement. The world was a chessboard, and every nation was looking for an edge. In this environment, a clandestine team of engineers and strategists, operating under a veil of secrecy, was tasked with an audacious project. Their mission? To develop a revolutionary reconnaissance and defense system that seemed straight out of science fiction. This project was codenamed Operation Obsolete Resolve. The core idea was simple yet brilliant. Instead of creating brand new, cutting-edge technology from scratch, which would be incredibly expensive and time-consuming, the team decided to do the exact opposite. They would take technology that was considered outdated or even obsolete and repurpose it in ways no one had ever imagined. The name itself, Obsolete Resolve, was a nod to this unconventional philosophy, a firm determination to make the old new again. So what were they working with? Think about the technology of the 1940s and 50s. We're talking about things like vacuum tubes, analog computing systems, and early generation radar equipment. To most, this was junk, destined for the scrap heap. But to the team behind Operation Obsolete Resolve, it was a treasure trove of untapped potential. Their primary focus was on creating a decentralized, highly resilient communication network. At the time, communication systems were centralized, making them vulnerable. A single strike could knock out an entire network. The Obsolete Resolve team envisioned a system with no central hub. They used old radio equipment, modified with clever engineering to create a mesh network of independent nodes. If one node was taken out, the others could automatically reroute signals, ensuring the network stayed operational. It was a primitive, analog version of the very principles that would later underpin the internet. But they didn't stop at communications. The team also experimented with repurposing old analog fire control systems from decommissioned naval ships. These were massive, gear-filled mechanical computers designed to calculate the trajectory of artillery shells. The engineers of Obsolete Resolve adapted them for a completely different purpose: drone control. Yes, you heard that right. It's drones in the 1960s. These weren't the sleek quadcopters we see today. They were repurposed target drones, originally used for anti-aircraft practice. The team fitted them with simple cameras and used the old naval computers to create semi-autonomous flight paths. The analog systems were immune to the kind of electronic jamming that was a growing concern for modern digital systems. They were clunky, they were slow, but they were incredibly robust. One of the most ambitious parts of the project was what they called the Echo Guard system. This used an array of outdated acoustic locators, the kind used to detect aircraft by sound before the widespread adoption of radar. The team arranged hundreds of these large listening horns in remote, strategic locations. They weren't trying to detect high-speed jets, that was impossible. Instead, they were listening for the subtle, low-frequency sounds of ground troop movements or vehicle convoys from miles away. The data from these acoustic sensors was fed into a central analysis hub, where, once again, old analog equipment was put to work. They used repurposed statistical machines, originally designed for processing census data, to filter out background noise and identify patterns. It was a crude form of signal intelligence, but it was completely passive. It emitted no signals and was therefore undetectable by the enemy. For several years, the project saw remarkable, albeit secret, success in small-scale tests. The repurposed drone systems demonstrated an uncanny ability to navigate complex terrain, and the Echo Guard system proved surprisingly effective at detecting simulated enemy movements in field exercises. The decentralized communication network was put through its paces and showed incredible resilience. The team had proven their point. With enough ingenuity, old tech could be just as effective and in some ways superior to the new. So why haven't we heard of it? Why did this brilliant project fade into obscurity? The answer lies in the very nature of progress. As the 1970s dawned, the digital revolution began to take hold in earnest. The development of the microprocessor changed everything. Suddenly, the processing power that once required a room full of vacuum tubes and mechanical gears could fit onto a tiny silicon chip. Digital technology was becoming cheaper, faster, and more powerful at an exponential rate. In this new landscape, the philosophy of Operation Obsolete Resolve began to seem, well, obsolete. Why spend months re-engineering an old analog computer when you could get a digital one that was 1,000 times more powerful off the shelf? The project's main advantages, its low cost and immunity to electronic jamming were quickly being overshadowed by the sheer capability of emerging digital systems. The top brass, who had once been intrigued by the project's cleverness, now saw it as a dead end. Funding was gradually diverted to more promising digital initiatives. The brilliant team of engineers was reassigned to other projects, their unique skills in analog and mechanical systems no longer in high demand. By the mid-1970s, Operation Obsolete Resolve was quietly shut down. The prototypes were disassembled, the research notes were classified and archived, and the entire endeavor was largely forgotten. It became a footnote in a classified report, a quirky experiment that was ultimately a victim of its own time. The world was moving on, and the future was digital. But the story doesn't end there. The legacy of Operation Obsolete Resolve lives on in subtle ways. The core concepts they pioneered, decentralized networks, robust systems, and asymmetrical thinking, are more relevant today than ever. The idea of building a resilient network with no single point of failure is the foundation of modern internet architecture. The focus on creating systems that are difficult to disrupt electronically is a central concern in modern cybersecurity. The project serves as a powerful reminder that innovation isn't always about creating the newest, shiniest thing. Sometimes, it's about looking at what you already have with fresh eyes. It's about creative problem solving and finding value where others see none. The men and women of Operation Obsolete Resolve were ahead of their time, not in the technology they used, but in the way they thought. They demonstrated that, with enough resolve, even the obsolete can be made powerful. Their story is a testament to human ingenuity and a fascinating hidden chapter in the history of technology and defense. So, the next time you see an old piece of technology, don't just see it as junk. Think of the engineers of Obsolete Resolve and ask yourself, what hidden potential lies within? What new purpose could it serve with a little bit of creativity? The answer might just surprise you. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into a forgotten piece of history. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the fascinating, untold stories of our past. See you next time.